Welcome to This Explainer. Today I'm going to take you on a deeply personal journey, one that actually starts in the most unexpected of places and ends with a profound realization about how we connect with the divine. We're going to explore the difference between true, authentic expression and the empty rituals we sometimes just blindly fall into. And we're going to do it by looking at the purest source of truth I've ever personally encountered, a classroom full of first graders. Are you praying or are you just performing? I really want you to keep that question in the back of your mind as we go through this explainer. So let me set the scene for you. I was working at one of the biggest banks at the time, deep in the corporate world. One day, I got a call from my 5th grade son's school. They invited me to come in as a guest speaker, a sort of role model, to show the kids what a working professional looks like and how my industry helps society. I agreed, and the principal asked me to actually start my visit with the 1st grade class.
Part 1. The classroom visit, and acting as a guest speaker.
I remember walking into that classroom so vividly. They had set up a nice chair for me right at the front. I was fully decked out in my formal office wear, a crisp suit, a sharp tie, carrying my laptop. I was very consciously trying to project the image of the perfect professional. I sat there calmly, acutely aware of all these small, curious eyes staring up at me. I wanted to make sure they saw someone special. Naturally, these young kids wanted to impress the chief guest. The very first boy I interacted with, who was about 5 or 6 years old, enthusiastically opened his bag and pulled out a painting. And wow, this painting really, really touched me. It wasn't your standard house or a smiling sun. It was an uncommon, weird-looking snake sitting on a strange, imaginative tree. The whole thing was just this messy, wonderful explosion of his own raw imagination poured right onto the paper. I was genuinely amazed. I literally couldn't hold back my enthusiasm. I praised him with a full, open heart, and I could see the pure joy light up on his face.
Okay, let's dive into this. Part 2, the copycat trap and trying to impress. And this brilliantly illustrates what happened next. Right before my eyes, the dynamic in the room completely shifted. The other kids sitting in the class watched this interaction. They saw the first boy get praised, and suddenly they thought they had figured out the secret password to win my approval. They thought, the chief guest likes paintings, I need to make a painting. Look at the contrast here. The boy on the left gave me his messy, original imagination. The boy on the right handed me a forced, imitated copy. The second boy didn't really have the same natural skill or passion for painting, but he was trying so hard to impress me. He was just executing a formula he thought would win. He had completely abandoned his own authentic self just to perform what he thought was the right action.
Notice how we broke out of that trap. I gently nudged the second boy. I told him, I liked a painting, but what is your best part? What do you actually love to do? He kept trying to steer it back to painting, but finally he admitted he loved to sing. So I asked him to sing, and he sang beautifully. For a 5-year-old boy, it was incredibly impressive. I told him, wow, you are a great singer. You don't need to paint. Your singing is amazing. The relief and happiness on his face were absolutely immediate. By the time I got to the third kid, he also tried to hand me a mediocre painting. I stopped him and found out he was a fantastic, high-energy talker who loved current events. Another was a natural athlete. Once they stopped copying, the beautiful variety of their actual, authentic human potential was unlocked. As my visit wrapped up, I made sure to leave the entire class with this very clear message. Everyone is good in their own way. You don't need to copy anyone else. You have to be exactly the way you were made to be. It was a beautiful, uplifting morning, but that lesson was about to take on a much deeper, much more profound meaning for me later that very same day.
Which brings us to Part 3, the rigid temple and strict compliance.
Fast forward to the evening. After returning home from the bank, my family and I decided to visit a local temple. And let me tell you, the contrast from that bright, energetic classroom could not have been more stark. As we arrived, the temple was incredibly crowded, but instead of vibrant energy, there was this heavy, somber atmosphere of strict compliance. I looked at the massive queue of adults in front of the deity. It was a sea of gray, mechanical rituals. People were blindly reciting books, bringing the exact same expected sweets, and chanting right on cue. We were just standing there, quietly looking at God and praying, when suddenly a priest approached me. He pointed to a specific spot on the floor and instructed me to bow down exactly there, simply because, as he put it, God likes that. As I bowed down, the events of the morning came rushing back to me, hitting me like a ton of bricks. I looked at the colorful, messy, beautiful authenticity of those children in my mind on one hand and compared it to the rigid, gray, mechanical rows of adults in the temple on the other. I realized that these adults were doing the exact same thing as the children who had tried to fake their paintings. They were blindly copying someone else's winning formula. They were performing rituals they had seen others do, rather than connecting authentically with the divine from their own hearts.
That realization leads perfectly into Part 4, the accidental offering, and the myth of Mahadev.
This whole experience actually reminded me of the myth of Mahadev, which perfectly captures how society turns innocent, pure moments of connection into empty, repetitive routines over time. The story goes that a man, a thief fleeing from danger, was hiding high up in a jungle tree in the middle of the night. As he nervously shifted his legs, he accidentally plucked some bell leaves, which drifted down and just happened to land on an idol of Mahadev sitting directly below. The deity felt this touch. He saw the raw, unscripted innocence of the moment, the complete lack of any performative agenda, and he happily gave the man his blessing. But when society heard the story, they completely missed the point. Instead of recognizing the beauty of the unscripted connection, the crowds turned the accident into a mindless script. They thought, the formula is dropping bell leaves on the idol's head. And just like that, a forced, performative ritual was born. The true moral of that story, and really the profound truth I realized in the temple that night, is this: God just needs a clean heart. No decorations, nothing else he needs. The divine connects with genuine, unscripted innocence. If you approach with a pure, clean heart, you literally don't need someone else's borrowed decorations or copied rituals. Let's move on to Part 5, finding your own path and building authentic connections. So what does this all mean for you, the seeker watching this explainer right now? It means that if you truly want to connect with something greater than yourself, you've got to step off the assembly line. You have to find your own honest spiritual path, much like those kids had to find their own true talents. Let me share my own personal style with you. When I looked around that noisy temple, I realized that the chaotic, repetitive chanting just wasn't me at all. My personal way to connect is incredibly simple. I sit in one place in utter silence. I think, I reflect, and I find inner peace. When I do that, things align for me, and my problems just seem to wash away. That is my authentic truth. It's quiet, it's unscripted, and it works perfectly for me.
But the beauty is, your path doesn't have to look anything like mine. Any style is absolutely perfect for sure, as long as it is uniquely yours. For someone else, maybe sitting and chanting naturally from morning to night is their absolute truth. For another, it might be reading a sacred book for just 5 deeply focused minutes. Someone else might meditate silently, while another person might connect by singing or dancing with an overflowing, pure heart. The form doesn't matter. What actually matters is that you are genuinely having fun, giving your whole authentic self to the experience, and not just mimicking the crowd.
So the crucial point is really a simple 3-step process to strip away all those forced expectations. Step 1, stop copying the crowd. Don't paint the snake just because the first kid got praised for it. Step 2, look inward and find what actually brings you pure inner peace. Step 3, connect genuinely in your own messy, authentic, completely imperfect way. Stop covering yourself up in someone else's style.
I want to leave you by returning to the core of everything we've uncovered today. Think about your daily routines, your quiet moments, the ways you seek peace or connection. Look deeply at those actions and ask yourself this final, honest question. Whose prayer are you reciting right now? Is it truly yours, or is it just a copy?